today what I wanted to kind of go over as kind of a recap of everything is A, see if you guys have any questions on positions that you're putting yourself in. B, kind of go over the positions in the body that are really tweaky. And then I actually have some pictures. So this is part of the course that I do as well, is going over and assessing positions that may be problematic, all right? So it's a kind of, again, just about bringing awareness into things. And many, many, many times it's a matter of just tweaking something ever so slightly, which is really, really, really important and can make a huge, 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 huge difference. So I think last week I talked about the violinist that I had that was having a really hard time reaching, I keep saying last week, but I think it was on Monday, reaching her G string and playing in third position, and it was all coming from her back area and her trunk area, which sounds really strange, but she wouldn't have ever noticed that herself unless she had somebody actually looking at her to see what she was doing. So some of the stuff we can certainly assess on our own, but some of the stuff we need an extra pair of eyes to kind of see what is happening, what am I doing, what is funky, what position am I putting myself in. So she was actually having difficulty playing her instrument, but for people that have been playing for years and years and years, what positions are you putting yourself in that can be tweaked a little bit so that you're in a better position? Because posture is key, and one of the most important things with posture is it decreases the wear and tear on our body if we are in a good posture, okay? So the goal is to live a long, healthy, injury-free life as much as we can, but the more wear and tear we put on our joints because we're not in a good position or we're not doing things to get out of deforming positions that we put ourselves in, the more our joints are going to get cranky and yell at us at some point in time later on down the line. So you may be fine now, but later on you may end up with more arthritis and that kind of thing. So the key is to avoid all that. So I'm going to show some pictures today of varying positions that people put themselves in. I'm just going to kind of go over the things that I see so you can kind of get a feel for how I assess people, so that you can sort of see how you can be assessing yourself too. So we talked about all the different positions, and then now we're going to just kind of go over examples. Since I don't have any, you guys didn't post any pictures of yourselves, so I'm going to use the pictures that I have in my actual presentation, one of my presentations. And I'm going to try and do it with the computer, but I did print them out in case my computer goes wonky. I don't want to spend time fighting with my computer. So I don't know if there's any guitarists out there. I know that there's a couple guitarists in this group, but Andrew, I can't remember what instrument you play off the top of my head. So I'm just going to warn you, if you're a guitarist, don't hate on me, okay? Please. All right. See, the computer just went funky. I am talking about, when I look at things from an instrument perspective, and I also look at things from a body mechanic, anatomy, joint protection standpoint. So I look at what the needs are of the actual instrument, but I also look at what the needs are of the body. And there can be a huge difference in terms of what we do versus what we don't do. So a lot of guitarists love the foot stand, right? The foot stand. The guitarist that I used to do it with used the foot stand. This is before I knew anything about anatomy and physiology and body mechanics and ergonomics. So the foot stand people love because it brings the guitar up in a better position to play. But the foot stand, again, don't hate me, because I know some people love it and I know some people play with it for years and years and years, but I'm just talking about what is wrong with the foot stand. The foot stand puts your hip up into flexion. When you go up into flexion, it shifts your spine and it shifts your pelvis, okay? So yes, it supports your instrument up higher so you can play better up top, but you're robbing Peter to pay Paul here, because you're robbing your lower body to fix your upper body. All right. So in my philosophy, there is a way around everything. to get into the best possible position. So they actually, I know that most people probably know this, there is a wonderful guitar support out there. And I'm not an affiliate for them. I don't get sponsorship for saying any of this, but it's a magnetic guitar support and it's adjustable and it is absolutely amazing. So I have a lot of patients that actually use that, so it changes the whole dynamic of their lower extremity and their pelvis. All right. So that's the first thing that I see with this guy, is that he's using that foot stand, which I know a lot of professional, amazing classical guitarists use. But again, I look at it from, what is it doing to your body? What is it doing to your body? And is there a different solution that will put your body in a better position so that you don't have to worry about potential injuries? All right. So feet flat on the floor is the best thing. Up on your sit bones. Remember, I had you sitting on your hands the other day? Up on your sit bones is a great way to do it. And that guitar support can really take you out of this position. Okay. Now, what I do like about him is his head is nice and straight. I love that. I can't make it bigger. Thought I could make it bigger. But his head is nice and straight, so I love that. So this is just the whole footstool debacle that I will get on my soapbox about. But remember that picture that I showed you guys last time about the spine and what happens to your spine, and it's right here. So I'm gonna put it in present mode so you can see that spine, what happens, right? There's a hip hike, a hip shift in there, and how your spine changes when you do that. So just imagine your hip being high like it is on the footstool. And then that, just think about it, just put your foot up like you would on the footstool, all right? And what does that do to the balance that you have to have in your trunk, all right? You have to have a certain amount of balance in your trunk. So you bring your leg up, I'm bringing my leg up, which you can't see, which then requires you're engaging your core muscles, which is great, all right? But you're also tweaking your lower back and your pelvis to keep that hip up, all right? Even if it's resting down on something, it is still twisting things, all right? So again, it's just a matter of finding the balance. So if you're bound and determined to continue on in life with the footrest, okay, but then you need to make sure that you are doing things to your body that are stretching out your hip flexors and strengthening the extensors in the back there so that you balance yourself. That's the key. You want to balance yourself, right? So that's my soapbox on that one. Oops. And I have this one. Okay. These are all pictures I got from, I'm part of Dreamstime. So they're all on Dreamstime, or I put photo credit on them. So I'm not stealing photos, just so we're clear. Okay, so what do we see here, right? Oh boy, look at how far her head is, how forward her posture is. Her left shoulder is really coming forward, all right, into that kind of pinched mode where you could actually get shoulder impingement if you stay in that position for too long. Her head is super, super, super forward. Now, if you're first learning the instrument, then you're going to look at the neck of the instrument and you're going to figure out where your fingers are. But for most professional and pre-professional musicians, you know your instrument inside and out well enough to not have to be looking down, all right? So I've had patients that are all hunched over their instruments where I just ask them to sit up straight, close their eye, and play their piece. And it's night and day. They don't need to be looking at the neck of their instrument. But what happens is they get into the habit of doing it. So are you into a habit of doing something? Is it something you need to do all the time or not? All right. So is it okay to do it on and off? Absolutely, of course. But is it okay to be the way she is all the time and play that way all the time? No. Her body's going to get mad at her at some point in time. Her neck, her shoulders, all right? She looks like she's got a lot of tension in that hand as well. All right, her fingers are looking pretty tense on both sides. So that co-contraction we worked with. And then also you can sort of see in her forearm, over here, how much she is pushing into the instrument to support it, okay? Because you can see the tissue in her forearm kind of flailing out because of the pressure that she's using to stabilize the instrument, okay? So again, that's that energy thing that she's pushing into the instrument she probably doesn't need to be, all right? I have no idea what her lower extremity is doing. Let's see. We did that one. I have a whole bunch of them here. Okay, so here we go. Flute. All right, so we're looking at thumb positioning here. All right, so for anybody that uses their thumb as a support on their instrument, all right, so you're looking at lots of different instruments. You're looking at clarinet, you're looking at oboe, bassoon, saxophone, flute. On the left hand as well, you're looking at violin, viola, cello, double bass, guitar, okay? Here's that dreaded thumb hyperextension. Look at how crazy hyperextended it is. So if you just take your thumb and I don't even know if people can get into that position or not, but that's a pretty hyperextended position. So typically what you want to do with your thumb is if you just take your thumb, and I think I did this with that video I did, but I'll do it again. If you just take your thumb and just kind of relax your thumb, what position does your thumb fall into? It kind of falls just underneath your index finger, all right? So if you then take your thumb and you put it underneath your middle finger, it creates more tension in your thumb. Hey, Andy, how are you? All right, so it brings more tension in under your thumb. Right? So I have flute players that will bring their thumb in all the way underneath their E key, which is really far in. Ideally, if you can be under the trill key or under the F key, that's even better. But you can see in this picture, she is kind of underneath since she's got so much hyperextension in her thumb joint there, she's kind of under the F key, under the trill key, but what's happening is she's really hyperextending down in, and she probably is gonna have pain in through this area as well. Okay, so that's one thing that you always wanna watch, and a lot of wind players have these thumbs that are just so hypermobile. All right, so a great thing to do is I will slap splints on people as biofeedback to help them get into a better position. All right, so there's that one. And Bill Clinton, if you want to see him playing the saxophone. We won't get into politics. Oh my God. Anyways, okay. So this is just kind of going over different positions. Here's the cellist. Okay. So if you just look at her statically, again, this is just looking at postures statically. This is not looking at people while they're actually playing, which is a whole nother level of assessment. All right. So what you can see is in her bow arm, she's, up pretty high, which is fine as long as it's temporary. She's not there all the time. Her shoulder is in that internal rotation, which we talked about, which is coming down. So it's kind of in this position, all right? But when you're in that left shoulder position for long periods of time, it can cause issues into your shoulder. And then if you look down at her wrist, she's kind of tweaking it over to the side, over to that little finger side, all right? I gotta pull my sleeve, which can irritate over in there as well. I need a third hand. I've been saying that for like the last 20 years as I treat. I wish I had a third hand. All right. And then if you look at her other wrist, all right, on the neck of the instrument, just below the scroll, you'll see that she's pretty flexed in. Now, for certain notes and for certain positions, you need to go into wrist flexion. But I have had patients who stay in wrist flexion and don't come out of it. All right. And again, that's not good. You go into the position, the extreme position when you need to, and then you come out of it when you don't need to, okay? And then just look at her head, right? We won't even talk about her head. So it's interesting because her head is actually going into the instrument rather than away from the instrument. And her head is forward and it's tilted, okay? Now, what happens when you're in these positions for long periods of time? All right, here's a funny one. Now this is comes from Richard Crabtree. And I know he's being kind of silly in some of these pictures, but I just wanted to show this. So if you look at the picture in the white coat, okay, his neck is really, really, really bent over. Okay, really bent over. All right, his wrist is kind of flexed a little bit. All right, now I don't know if he plays like that all the time or if this is just a picture of him. Again, these are just static postures that we're looking at. But again, if you're in that position for a long time, or if you start and you're in that position and you play in that position for a long time, you may end up with neck problems. And what's going to happen is that right side of his body, because that's his bow arm. I know it looks different with the camera reversing everything, but his right neck is really obviously bent to the left. So his right-sided neck muscles are going to really get stretched out, and his left ones are going to kind of contract down, right? And then if you look at the picture of him in the blue, he's obviously, I think, just being goofy, but look at how much wrist flexion he has there, right? And then his neck is actually into extension, which you don't typically see with violinists. But again, these are extreme, obviously, but they're just things for you to look at and for you to just sort of start thinking about. What position am I in? What am I doing? And then let's see. So this is a position, and then again, this is obviously just a model, but just look at how her feet are. So if you're standing and playing like that, it's going to throw off your whole center of gravity. She's got her legs crossed and they're close together, so her base of support is going to be really minimal, okay? The good thing is her knees are not locked, but again, it's not a great position. Her spine is twisted, right? And her knees are crossed, and her feet are really close together. Again, if you're in that position for a second, no big deal. If you're in that position the entire time when you're playing, more of a big deal. Okay, plus that trunk rotation is a big one. Okay, so here's clarinet. Okay, so I want you to look at the picture in the white shirt, okay? Not the lady in the white shirt. And I want you to look at that thumb position, okay? So that thumb position is essentially kind of underneath the middle finger. So again, if you take your thumb and you bring it under your middle finger and you're supporting it, you're supporting the instrument weight with it, and you're really pushing down into it, your thumb will end up being cranky at some point in time, more than likely, okay? So they make some really amazing thumb rests for clarinetists, where you can slide the thumb rest up and down, so you can actually get your thumb closer to under your index finger in a more natural C position. Okay. And then the lady on the right, I just put her there because she's kind of leaning back a little bit with her spine. And then her fingers are really far away from her keys. All right. So the further away from your keys your fingers are, the further they have to go to actually get down to depress those keys and or strings. So it's more energy you're putting out. And then, so this guy I'm looking at on the bassoon player side, okay? So when you look at him, his neck is pretty straight. It's a little rotated, just a little bit. But what I see most in him is his shoulder, all right? His shoulder's hiked up, and then it's also pulled back kind of far, and as it's pulling back, it's coming forward. So it's hiked up, it's pulling back, and it's coming forward, all right? Again, if you're in that position for, a minute or two, fine. Probably not a minute or two, that would still be fatiguing. But if you're in that position and you're playing that way for an entire concert, you're practicing that way for a long time, it may cause you problems at some point in time, and the joint may not get happy. The joint may get mad. All right. Oh, and then the double bass player on the concert, the classical guy there, he's just all hunched over his instrument. I feel bad for his posture, right? I mean, the double bass is a tricky one. It is such a tricky one. See, this is what happens. Oh, he came back. Oh, and now it just went away. See? Okay, but if he's playing in that position all the time with his shoulders forward, his head forward, his spine forward, all those things, he really needs to focus on opening his posture up and coming out of those positions, Because what's going to happen is the front part of his muscles are all going to get tightened down and tight, and then the back part's going to get overstretched, okay? So again, if you have to kind of contort around your instrument That's one thing, but you have to make sure that you're doing certain exercises to get you out of the deforming positions that you put yourself in. And if you are putting yourself in deforming positions, you need to ask yourself, can I put my body in a better position from a physical standpoint and an instrument standpoint? And if I can, do it, right, without it kind of affecting things down the line, all right? So those are kind of just the examples that I had from my presentation that I gave to the kids. But what you will see too is that you'll see that I'll have patients come in and lie down on my table to do certain treatments with, and they won't be straight. All right. So I have, I can think of one guy off the top of my head. He's a guitarist. He's been playing for years, probably 40 to 50 years. And he lay down on the table, and he's not straight at all. At all. His spine is twisted, and his head is totally resting to the left. So I said to him, I said, straighten yourself out. He's like, I am straight. I said, no, I need you to straighten your body out so you're in alignment. He's like, I am straight. So he had no idea that he was crooked, that he was resting in that position, and he was not able to right himself, because what happens is that as we put ourselves in these positions for long periods of time, over time, they become our natural resting state, okay? They become our natural resting state out of the good posture. And remember, I can talk about posture for a long time, and that can be a whole nother lesson, but posture is so important on so many levels. And it's really about making sure that we're in good posture so that we have less wear and tear on our joints, so that we can be proactive rather than reactive, okay? So he couldn't get himself into that position. So I physically had to put him into a head straight, spine straight position. And he was like, no way, this is not straight. This is me going to the right. So he physically felt himself, proprioceptively felt himself, that he was going in the opposite direction that he shouldn't be, because he has been so used to being in that one position, okay? So you not only have the physiological changes that happen with putting yourself into a position for long periods of time, but you also have that whole change in proprioception and your body awareness. And the fact that you can't be aware of where your body actually is and where it should be is one of the things that you really need to work on. So again, just a couple days ago, I had a flute player in here, and I had her go in on the table, lay on the table, and she did the exact same thing. So she couldn't feel, she couldn't get her head into a neutral position. Not so much her spine, but it was her head. And she's a young player. She's probably just out of college, 22, 23 maybe. So she hasn't been playing as long as this other person had, but she already had those changes in body awareness that her position was not in alignment. So when I put her into the right position, again, she felt like she was not straight. She was leaning in the opposite direction when she was actually literally straight. So that just shows you how things can change, and how we're not even aware of that. So it's just little things that I want you guys to be aware of, so that in the long haul you can be healthy, and really assess your body positions, assess your joint mobility, how much do you have, assess what position you're most comfortable in, and have somebody lay down on the table or on the floor and have somebody take a picture of you and see if you're straight, and then you try to fix yourself and see if you can, and if you can't, then you know that you have muscle imbalances that probably need to be worked out a bit. And again, some of these things are really subtle things, and so this is just the first step in you guys kind of assessing yourself, assessing your body, assessing your joints, assessing what position you're putting yourself at your instrument. Then you add in the actual playing aspect of it, and it's a whole nother dynamic level of really assessment. What are your muscles doing? Are you moving in and out of positions? Are you staying in a certain position? And some things can be so subtle that you don't even realize that you're doing it. So sometimes it takes that extra pair of eyes to see, what am I doing? What am I doing that I could fix so that I set myself up so that I don't get injured? or what am I doing that I need to fix because I am injured, all right? And when we are playing, we don't realize the things that we are doing. So it does take another set of eyes sometimes to actually have yourself assessed and looked at to make sure that you stay injury free and none of these things happen. Because if I had somebody look at me years ago when I was going through all my stuff and did what I do now as, you know, for work, I would know that I shouldn't be putting all my weight into one side. I knew that I would know that I needed to switch my thumb position. I would know that I needed to fix my little finger position on my right hand, my E flat key. And I would know that there are certain things that I needed to do to get out of the positions I was putting my neck in. Because as a flute player, you have to turn to the left. You can't play your flute and look this way. It just doesn't work. So I would be doing things to counteract all of what I was putting my body in for, 6-8 hours a day. And I would have been in a much better place. But nobody did what, did any of that years ago. And I won't say how many years ago, but it was a long time ago. So it's important to just bring awareness to all this because you don't want to end up not being able to play or being injured when there's things that you can do to prevent it. So be proactive. If you have an injury, get help right away. Make sure somebody looks at you while you're actually playing because you can treat a muscle, you can treat a tendon, but unless you have somebody that looks at you that knows the instrument and knows how to fit your body to the instrument, then you're only getting part of the problem. You're not going to actually fix the entire thing. So you may feel better temporarily, but you really got to get to what caused it in the first place and what can you do to prevent it from coming back. So if anybody has any questions, please comment below. I know it's been a lot of information over the last 2 weeks. If you have any questions, holler. I am going to drop a link. I'm going to offer a special rate for sessions with me that we can either do in person or online that is super discounted. If you want me to take a peek at your technique and see if there's anything I see that needs to be tweaked or anything that you're concerned about and that kind of thing. I have patients come see me for preventative stuff a lot, and I really think it needs to happen more and more and more. So I'm on a mission to get musicians to be healthy and to be proactive so that they don't have injuries. So I will drop that link into, if you're interested in having a session with me, it's a package of 2 sessions where we're going to go over dive in deep into assessing your motion, assessing your position while you're at your instrument while you're playing, and then also looking at other things that may be affecting your body as you're actually going through other things in your life, because it may not just be your instrument. There's other things that could be contributing factors as well, and then kind of making those changes. So it'll be one huge follow-up and one huge session kind of digging into that, and then a follow-up to go over any questions. There's also a questionnaire that I have made that I created for musicians. It's about 18 pages long. It's really to get you start thinking about all different things that have to do with your music and your environment and your mental state, your energy, and that kind of thing. And then you will fill that out. We'll go over that kind of together. And there's another little bonus in there. So I'll drop the link to that if you're interested in kind of working with me. Otherwise, it's, obviously no pressure. I just want people to make sure that they're getting as much out of these sessions as they possibly can, and these videos and learning as much as they can to stay healthy. So again, any questions, comment below, and we will talk soon.